Okay, I think this is going to end up being a bit of a shorter video, despite the fact that it took me a long time to actually make because I had to come up with the data for this, which definitely took a bit. But really, what I wanted to do was I just wanted to look through this and see, is there a way we can sort of use past evaluations to decide what's going to make a current evaluation more or less accurate? What I mean by that is, what matters more? Does speed matter more? Does strength matter more? Does size matter more? Here's what I'm talking about. What I did was I went back and looked at every single edge rusher that was selected within a time period. I believe it was 9 years. I believe it with a 9 year time period that was drafted in the first or second round. I then went back and looked at old evaluations of that player and just wanted to see what people were saying about that player. Then I decided to calculate how often did they end up being good players based on those evaluations. So which traits translate to being a good NFL player more than other traits? Which traits have bigger bust factors? I think this is a really interesting thing that I think we should probably be doing more often with all of these, prospects and all these position groupings, because if there's a thing that we see as overvalued, we should know to undervalue that. The way I ended up doing this was I had 5 main categories, which is speed, hands, if you're strong, if you have size, and if you're good at stopping the run. Those were the 5 categories. And so, sometimes there would be some smaller things that get thrown in there too, but you got to narrow it down at a certain point. And so I looked at every single prospect and saw if that was a positive attribute, I just added it to that prospect. Then what I did was I looked at them and said, is this player good? Is this player not good? It's kind of, it's up to interpretation to some degree, but the whole point is that I get a big enough sample size that, even if I get 1 or 2 wrong, they're going to be fringe guys anyways, and we can, the data won't be completely screwed up. It'll still work out. And this is what happened. So you look at speed rush, that's by far and away the worst, but also worth mentioning is by far and away the most commonly used. It was used with 47 different prospects, and there ended up only being 67 total prospects, 32 of which were good. So we're talking just shy of 50% total. And you look at this, if you have speed, that's actually a very overvalued stat, it appears. The only exception could potentially be, part of me wonders if speed just gets thrown on to a lot of guys that they don't really know what else to say about them. Maybe you see them win one speed rush and you say, oh, hey, they got speed. But still, it seems to some degree that this is an overvalued thing. Hands tends to be pretty equal to what just your average is. It's a little bit better than average. So hands seem like a fine thing to use, but not like something that's going to make or break you. Strength is a key one. If you're strong, that does tend to translate to the NFL, which is a bit surprising because you would wonder, I think I would start to wonder, like, well, if strength is a key attribute, is it going to work in the NFL? But more often than not, that's actually a pretty good tool to use and a pretty good attribute to look for in a prospect. Size was, again, a little bit above average, nothing crazy, but actually run defense ended up being the best one. It was 11 of the 14 players who run defense was a positive attribute attributed to them ended up being good players, which is surprising. Now, I was wondering if there's potentially some issues with this data, which I hope there isn't. I spent a long time on this, but I think there possibly could be. Really, the main issue I think that could end up happening is that if you have a prospect who, doesn't do a lot well, but is kind of fast, you're probably not going to also bring up that they're a good run defender, even if they actually are. So I think that could possibly be part of what kind of skews the data a little bit. If there's someone who just isn't very good at much, again, people might just see, oh, okay, he won that speed rush. At least he has some speed. Maybe that's why you draft him. So, some of these late second round guys, there were some players who all they had was speed and they ended up busting. So part of me wonders if that's the case to some degree. But again, that's something worth mentioning then. If someone just has speed, maybe you don't draft him and instead you draft a player who has, speed and good hands, or speed and is strong, speed and a good run defender. Something like that, I think probably makes more sense. So yeah, just kind of an interesting little tool that I think I'll probably use when evaluating edge rushers because, hey, it tells you what to look for a little bit better. Don't overvalue a speed rush. At least that's what I think from this data. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.